Okay. It is 7:02, so I will call the Finance Committee meeting of January the 25th to order. I'll just take a quick roll. Peter? Here. Aaron?
Here.
Mark? Zach?
I'm here.
Paula?
Here.
Bonnie?
Here.
Michael Fiore?
Here.
Amy?
Here.
And Rick?
Here.
Okay. I know the first order of business is we do have a request for a transfer. I know that Michelle had sent information regarding that. It's on the mailing of the charter information to the town. So Mike, I don't know if you want to give any more context to that.
Yeah, the Charter Commission has a booklet that they've asked Lucia to mail out to all the homes of registered voters in Norton. And for the printing and the mailing, it'll be $10,500. So Lucia's asking for a transfer request for that amount. It wasn't something that she anticipated that she was going to have to do this year, so it's not in her budget.
And Mike, with that said, are there any other additional expenses with the Charter Commission at this point that we may not know about?
Right now, the only other additional expense is that if the charter passes in April, I believe that there is a special election that would have to occur in June.
And what did we say the cost of these elections, a special election would be? For some reason, I had 10 to 12,000 in my head.
It's around 10,000. The only unknown variable right now is there's a bill at the State House that they may require for local elections that we mail ballots to everyone like we did in the previous elections, and that would cost $25,000. So additional.
We're looking at potentially 35,000.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and do we use a fulfillment house, Mike, for this mailing, or do we?
We do, yes.
It is, okay.
Yeah, so it's a better way to do it. They'll just print it and they'll send it out and they get a better rate, bulk mailing.
Okay, and my last question, just for information, I was just curious where I'd like to see if we can get more types of communication out to the town. Is there any way to put anything in that mailing, potentially highlighting or outlining how people can get on that push notification, that we could maybe use that a little bit more so people know what's happening in town? I just feel that the communication, we're at the minimum, where we use the newspaper, we tell people to go to the website, and if people don't have social media, they're kind of out of the loop. And I just think if we can do anything else, then I'm all for it.
I don't believe we can include anything with that information on the charter. It's something that we maybe should look at to do a separate way.
Okay. I don't know if anyone else on the committee has any questions regarding the transfer. Aaron?
Oh, not regarding the transfer, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but just a comment on the using the sort of the text messages. I think it's important, or I would think it could be important to keep whatever information goes out through those minimal and important, so that they don't become something that gets ignored. As
Right.
Everybody's relaying all of their information through them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You don't want it to become noise. Thank you.
And I know that's a big concern of the public safety people, Aaron.
Mr. Chairman.
Zach?
Mike, what are we actually mailing out? Just a copy of the proposed charter?
It's, if Lucia, are you on? It's pretty extensive. It's a booklet that talks about what they've done and what the charter changes are. Anything else, if Lucia's on, that she wants to add to that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, hello. It's a 36-page, it's in a magazine form. And it's the first part of it is their findings, and the second part is the Charter Commission. But it's all together, it's just in 2 parts.
And Lucia, is there anything in there about implement the recommendations?
To the best of my knowledge, no. In all honesty, Mr. Chair, I haven't read it. I haven't had time to read it. It was given to me, it was asked of me to get it mailed out, so I've been working with the printers for costs, and I haven't read it.
Okay. I guess at some point it'd be nice to information to have, but I know right now our conversation's more on the transfer, so I'll keep it to that point. So anyone else has, or anyone doesn't have any questions regarding the transfer, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Michael?
I move we transfer the amount of $10,500 from FinCom Reserve to account 001-162-570-5304, Town Clerk.
Second.
I have a motion, and Peter, was that you with the second, or was that Zach?
Yes, well, one of us.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to transfer $10,500 from the FinCon reserve to the town clerk's budget item that was referenced in the motion. Any other conversation, discussion before we entertain a vote? Okay, hearing none. I'll call for the vote. Peter?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Michael Fiore?
Yes.
Amy? Rick?
Yes.
Amy? Okay, I am also.
Yeah.
Amy, was that you?
It was.
Okay. And I am also, yes, so that is unanimous. So Mike, that transfer, how do you want me to sign that now? Is it gonna be like the DocuSign or the
Yeah,
equivalent?
I'll send that to you tomorrow morning. Hello, sign. You can sign it and send it back.
Okay, thank you. So I know second agenda item today is a discussion with the Director of Assessing. I thought it was a good idea. We have a bunch of new members, and even for our members who've been on quite a while, to just discuss how we set the tax rate, what's involved. And at the town meeting, there was some conversation around the impact of some of the TIFs. So if we could clarify that, there was I think there was no exact truth to what the conversations were at the town meeting, but both had some pros and maybe some things that weren't right. So I figured we get to the source and have a presentation on how that works. So I will, and I apologize. I'm not sure, is it Denise?
Yes.
Denise, I will let you take over the meeting at this point.
Okay, so I can bring up the presentation that I did for the selectmen. Is that what you'd like to see?
That's perfect, thank you.
Okay. All right, so I've only done this once before, so bear with me. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Okay, I have it up, so I don't know what I did wrong.
Mr. Chairman?
hold on.
Oh, never mind.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
And Denise, if you just have one, sorry, Kevin, I don't think I got you on the roll. I apologize for that.
That's all right, I'm here.
Okay. And on the vote itself as well, just think it's still unanimous. Do I have to do anything additional on that, Mike, units?
As long as Kevin's a yes, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm a
Okay.
yes.
Kevin, sorry about that, and I apologize, but next time, just shout out if I miss you.
No worries.
Thank you.
All set?
All set, Denise, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about,
No worries. So what I do every year, we have the classification hearing. With the classification hearing, it's up to the Board of Selectmen to decide if there's going to be a split rate or just a single tax rate. And the way we do that is if there's going to be a split tax rate, you're not going to get any more money out of that. It's just shifting the money. So we have the levy, that amount's just going to be shifted if you do a split tax rate. You're not going to bring in any more money by doing that. Does that make sense?
it does.
Okay. All right, so I don't really know what you want me to go over, but do you want me to go through the whole classification hearing? Is that easier for you, or is there certain things that you want me to pick up on?
No, I think the key terms, how we set the rate, and again, if you would explain the impact of the TIFs that has on the tax rate, if any, and then just how, well,
So the TIFs are all included in, I don't really think it impacts it at all. So what happens is we have the levy, right? So the TIFs are all discounted certain ways, the way that's all how it was written. So we are assessing them at a certain amount of money. That's all included in the levy. So what we do is then we take that total amount. Hold on a second, let me just get to that page. So we have I'm sorry, so it's total valuation. And those TIFs are included in the total valuation. So here we have the total valuation of, what's that, 2,761,023,460. All the TIFs are included in that amount of money. And what we do is we take that amount of money and then we divide that by, let me get to the other page. It's easier for you to read, sorry. So we take the actual levy, the money that we have, and we divide that by the total assessed value. And that will give us a tax rate. And again, the TIFs are included in the total assessed value.
okay,
Does that make sense?
it does.
Okay.
So maybe it will be easy, Denise, if you could just go right through the presentation and at the very end,
Just go through it all, okay, yeah, instead of skipping around.
right, I can ask the members if they have any questions at the end of the presentation.
12 million people, okay. So basically what I do is I present this to the board. It's mainly from the Board of Assessors. And then I just go through it and I explain what the hearing is all about. Again, how to determine what we're going to do with the tax base. And again, on this page, it just says that it doesn't include it. So it's for the residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property are the categories that we have. So in the classifications that we have 5 classes that it's divided. We have residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal property. We don't have any open space in Norton. So we're just going with residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property. And then I put a bunch of slides in explaining what everything is. We have new growth, which is anything that is new. So like, for instance, if you have a lot of land, the land is assessed at a certain amount. If you build a house on that vacant piece of land, that's new growth, whatever that value is going to be. Commercial, industrial, for instance, over on Leonard Street, you had the land. We took down all the buildings that were there, and the difference of the new growth is all the new buildings that are there now. So that will hit really next year. We got some of it this year, but more will hit next year for that. So again, it's up to the Board of Selectmen to vote, and they would vote on a single tax rate, a split tax rate. It's going to be a minimal residential factor, small commercial exemption, or a residential exemption. The last two, Norton doesn't do. But it's something that we have to present anyway.
Mr. Chairman?
Aaron?
Hi, Denise. Can you give me some clarification on what the, can you go back to the previous slide, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Can you clarify the minimum residential factor for everybody, please?
Sure, so that's going to be on the next one. So the next slide that I have up now. So the residential factor is, right now, we're a factor of 1. If you were to split the tax rate, that would change the residential factor for, let me just see if I can find a slide. Explain it a little bit better. It's going to be down a little bit more. Okay, so this is a residential factor. So we are at 1 as a single tax rate. If you were to shift it, that will shift your residential factor. So for instance, if we went up to, if you went down to say 1.2, the residential part of that would be 95.41%. And then, I'm sorry, it would be, the residential would be 77.59, and the commercial, industrial, and personal property would be 22.41. So when you're splitting the tax rate, the residential tax rate would be 14.24, where the commercial, the CIP, commercial, industrial, and personal property would go up to 17.92. That's how the residential factor affects it. It depends on what the board decides. If they decide to split it, what factor would they take? What shift? Okay. Any questions?
Aaron, does that answer your question?
Yes, and if I may follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Thank you. So I believe Norton has always had a factor of 1.
It has. So we've always had a single tax rate. Many years ago, there was a split tax rate, but that lasted for about 5 years from what I've seen.
And that's going way back.
That's way back.
Yeah.
That was like maybe in the 80s or something like that. Okay, so let's go back up.
And Denise, what would be some of the reasons for a change in that factor?
Only if you split the tax rate, that's when it changes.
And it's just really a weighting of residential versus commercial, it appears?
Right, exactly. So we lump commercial, industrial, and personal property together. So it's residential or the other 3.
Okay.
So for residential, you know, from 100%, 81.33% is residential, 6.7 is commercial, 9.3 is industrial, and personal property is 2.67. And I'll show you some graphs as how it's been changing over the last few years. And again, here is the total valuation and what the percentages are for each residential. So again, to calculate it, you take the levy, divide that by the total assessed value, which gives you your tax rate, which the tax rate this year is $14.93. So the other thing I put in there, excuse me, is I do the average tax bill. So single family for 2021 is 382,978. And their average bill, I'm sorry, that was your assessment, their actual average bill is 5,718. And then you'll see that the commercial, the CIP is over $1 million, the average one, with about $16,000 in taxes. And then I also present the top 10 taxpayers. And these are the top 10 right now. We have Untitled, JSIP, and it goes, the list goes down. So obviously, Untitled is our biggest taxpayer right now, and they have a TIF. So that, the 95, excuse me, I'm under construction, my house is full of dust. 95 million is half, so their TIF this year is at 50%, so that's 50% of their value, and that's what they're being taxed on.
Mr.
So if they
Chairman,
were at 100%, obviously, their taxes would be double that.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think that's Zach.
yeah, well, yeah, I was gonna wait to the end, but while we bring up an island and the TIFs, and I know you had some concern with the TIFs. The problem that I think you may be referring to, or could be wrong, with the TIFs are, and you can use Nylon as the, example. Their taxes are round numbers, $1.5 million, 1.4. So our levy limit was increased by $1.5 million in year one. In year two, we gave them a 50% break. So now their taxes are $750,000. But your levy limit hasn't changed. So that means you and I and everybody in this town have to pick up the $750,000. So a lot of people would consider that, I know it's bringing in business, but, a lot of people would consider that corporate welfare. But when you give somebody a TIF, especially in year two, when you have the full in year one, the tax rate money's still coming in. It's just you and I and it's divided by everybody else. So that's the problem with these TIFs and the way they're structured. It's really a kind of a backdoor tax increase to the residents and the rest of the businesses.
And that's exactly the conversation that was happening in the town meeting when they mentioned that on the floor.
Well, it's true, because that's what it is. But that's the Board of Selectmen's fault. They're the ones who, I believe, who structured the deal. And when you structure a deal like that, we're gonna get 100% in year one and, 50% in year two. Well, you just passed basically an override, a backdoor override for $750,000. I guess nobody wants to argue with me on that point.
No, I think that's why we're going through this act. It's just clear how that process works. So I
So
don't think.
whoever brought it up at town meeting was 100% correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Aaron,
I guess the only difference I would I think exists is that overrides are permanent and these are temporary and scale down and disappear over time as the business assumes its full tax responsibility.
And every TIF is a little bit different. You can go up to 20 years on a TIF. This one is not a 20-year TIF.
and I think there's a cost benefit that goes into the whole evaluation of the TIFs. What other revenue is going to be brought in from that actual entity.
Just to follow up on that, Mr. Chairman,
Is that Zach?
it's Rick.
Rick? Sorry.
Mike can validate this, but didn't they have to concede recently on their TIF because they weren't able to meet the employment requirement? Was that an item, Mike?
That's why we went to town meeting.
Right.
To amend their TIF to lower the employment requirement.
Right, so I guess my point was that these TIFs are flexible and fluid, I guess, as they go get evaluated to the requirements that were set. That's it.
Thanks, Rick. Anyone else at this point? All right, Denise, sorry about that. And then it makes more sense, so we're not jumping around. I think based on the presentation, we'll just ask questions as we go while you're on a specific slide instead of jumping around.
So what I did is I also put in the surrounding towns. And if they have, I did Attleboro, Easton, Foxborough, Mansfield, North Attleboro, Raynham, and Taunton. So all the surrounding towns. And I did their tax rates, and they all have a split rate except for, I believe, the town of Easton. And which Easton, it's a little bit, they don't have the industry like Attleboro does or Foxborough. We don't have a lot of that yet either. I mean, we're getting there, but we're not quite there. But I put this in there so the selectmen can see this as well, to see what's going on.
Chair,
Yep.
you had asked before, and I'm not quite sure what your question was, why would you have a split rate? So one of the reasons, like when you look at Foxborough, they've got Gillette Stadium, and North Attleboro, I'm not sure how it's working out for them now, but they had the mall. So a lot of the communities, when they have a larger industrial base, they'll go to a split rate. When you just have a lot of small businesses, like when you saw when Denise showed, if you went to the 1.2, it's like a $3 per thousand increase on the commercial tax base. And in a town like Norton, until we build up our larger commercial base, that really is a big hit on a lot of small businesses.
Thanks, Mike.
It's like, so I talked earlier about new growth. So this year for new growth, we have the real estate at 133, then we have commercial, industrial, and personal property for a total of 874,899 in new growth.
And Denise, what would be some of the reasons that the state would not, or the Department of Revenue would not certify our rate?
It would not certify our rate.
Yes.
It's a good question. I don't really know. I could look into it for you. I've never heard anybody not being certified before.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, I can look into that for you though, and definitely
Okay.
get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Peter?
can someone give me an example of what personal property is? Is that like boats and trailers and things?
No, personal property is the equipment that businesses use. For instance, if you're in a restaurant, like there may be tables and chairs and different things like that. Tools you might need, anything that's in the business that they need to run the business. And some of those are exempt depending on what the business is. For instance, if they're registered with their state, if they're a manufacturer, they're exempt from personal property. So every business is a little bit different. We have to look into that.
Denise, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Do you know what the new growth was for around November of 2019, what the difference is?
I do. I have that on a growth, actually. I have it on a, let me just see. I think I have it here. Do you want the actual number?
Yeah, I'm just curious for comparison's sake.
Actually, I think new growth, I don't have it here on this. I think it might have been, is it higher? Let me just see if I have it on this list. I don't think I do.
What's on slide 15, Denise?
15? Yeah, so 19, it was higher, and that was due to El Nilam finishing up. So it was up about, no, I think it was over $1 million. I have it like a 1.2.
Okay. We're slightly higher than 2018.
Yeah, we've been steadily increasing, but we did go down for 20 and 21. That's because El Nilam finished, and we finished with their new growth.
Okay.
So, but now we're in 21. Keeping us steady is the project over on Leonard Street.
Right.
We picked up maybe, I don't know, the 2 buildings that are there, we only picked up partial of those buildings. So we should see some new growth from them from next year.
Okay, thank you.
So we can finish, plus anything else that they put on the property. So I think the growth, and I just did different graphs to see what's going on. For instance, this graph here is just showing, I started in 2017 because that's when I started here. So that's when I started tracking it. And since that time, the percentages, the residential percentage is going down, but the commercial, the CIP is going up. So in order to do a split tax rate, that's what you want to see. You want to see the residential a little bit lower, where the CIP is higher, like 20-25% of the overall. So we're slowly getting there. So right now we're at, the residential is only at 81. So if we can get that down a little bit more and the CIP up a little bit higher, then that's when you're really going to start considering to do a split tax rate. This is just a different graph to show you how it looks. And this is what I went over earlier. This is the residential factor and how it affects the tax rates if it were to be a split tax rate.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Michael?
Denise, is there a rule of thumb on what percentage the commercial should be before you actually consider a split tax rate?
Most towns usually go between 20 and 25. Other towns, not always. I think it depends on what they have in their town, but usually that's what we try to hit, 20 to 25%.
Okay, thank you.
And again, just a hypothetical, if you did do a split tax rate, that would be the difference in the average tax bills. Sorry. So the open space discount is something I go over with the board. We do not have any open space, so it's not really a factor. And then they have to vote if they're going to do a residential or a commercial exemption, which for Norton, nobody really qualifies, so they have to take a vote on that either way. So that's something that has to be put into the and then this just explains what a residential exemption is. Basically, it's for the cities, and they give them an exemption so that the homeowners will stay in their homes instead of renting them out, so they'll give them a discount exemption. So I just go through all this with the board, what it all is, explain it to them. And then they have to vote on what they're going to do at the end. And that's basically it. That's all I really do. And that's it.
Okay. And is there a term that's used in the process where the overlays kick in, or potentially factor in an overlay? And what is an overlay?
So the overlay account is the assessor's account. That account is for all of our exemptions and abatements that we need. So for instance, the exemptions would be senior exemptions, veterans exemptions, all of those. I have to put so much money in that account every year to cover all of the exemptions and all of the residential abatements that might come up. So right now we're in the abatement season. It's from January 1st to February 1st. If people disagree with their assessment, then they can file for an abatement. And that's for commercial as well. So I have to make sure that I have enough money in that account to cover those abatements. They come up if we go further. For example, if I go out to their house, I look at it, and they're not happy with the amount, if it stays the same, then they're not happy. Or if I go out there and I bring the assessment down, but they don't still like that number, they can go to the appellate tax board and file with them with the state. If for some reason I lost, I would have to make sure I had enough money in that account so I could abate them back that money for the state. So that account's really just for the separate, that part of it. All that money in there.
Okay. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for Denise at this point on the presentation?
Mr. Chairman, just,
Zach?
it's Rick again.
Oh, sorry, Rick.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Just a small question, actually. On Bay Road, how do you classify those cranberry bogs? Is that agriculture? Is that?
Yes, they are 61A agriculture, so they are under bogs, yes. So in your chapter, so it's chapter land, we have recreational and we have agriculture. And we also have forestry plan. So the bogs are under that and they get a discount on the land.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Chairman,
Is that Aaron?
it is.
Okay, Aaron?
Denise, on Bay Road, how do you classify the cranberry bogs when they have solar grids on them?
So we'll have to wait and see how that's going to work out. So when they first started, they had to keep, it's been a while since I've even looked into that. But I think the law was that they had to keep growing at least the vines, and that could stay agriculture. And then we would do the solar as a personal property. So they would get the money from the bonds and for the solar.
That makes sense. Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, it's Peter.
Peter?
Can we get a copy of this presentation? It'd be great to have.
Sure, absolutely. Do you want me, I can email it to you or I'll put it on the website. What would you prefer?
Just email it, might as well just email it to everybody, then we'll have it.
Sure.
It's a good, I think it's something that the town folk could use too to look things up, but.
Yeah, I actually put it on my website. I usually try to do that, so I'll get that on the website too. Everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if there's nothing else on the presentation, Denise, I do have one other question for you outside of this. How are we doing with assessing the town properties? Do we feel like we're caught up in accurately assessing
What do you mean, everybody's property in town?
everyone's property in town? Yes.
We get certified every 5 years, and our last certification was in 2020. So we have a certain percentage that we have to inspect, and that is all overseen by the state. So we're doing good. So we did that. I'm out, and so anytime somebody buys a new home, I go out and try to look at it then. New construction I'm on top of. So we're constantly out there. If it's not me, then it's somebody from our software company out there. So we're in pretty good shape. So we'll be out there again this year. Every year we're out there doing them. And we try to see them at least every house every 10 years, if we can. And if no one's home, we'll leave a card. Hopefully they'll get back to us.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else on the committee? All right, I think that's it. Denise, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I'll get that, I'll email that to you.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Enjoy, be safe.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks. So I think, Mike, the next item on the agenda is the review the upcoming meeting schedule. Michael Eunice?
So I was wondering if everyone is fine with Monday nights. And we could just schedule meetings on Monday nights.
Yeah, I think Monday nights are fine for me. And I'd like to keep, if we can, if we can keep it to one night a week, we might have to go a little bit longer, but I know a couple of members have also reached out with that same opinion. So if we could keep it to one night, if Mondays work for the majority, I think that'd be terrific. Does anyone object to Monday nights on the committee?
I have nowhere else to be, Mr. Chairman.
I love it, Aaron. I love it. Thank you.
Monday nights are good for me too.
Thanks.
Am I gonna be the one that has to complain about the lateness of the hour? Am I the oldest one now?
I doubt it, but I'll pass it along to you anytime.
All right, excellent. So Mike, when we have a schedule set, I mean, when are you thinking of starting the regularly scheduled meetings?
I do have a schedule set, but I didn't bring it home with me. But we will probably start, the first or second week of February. So I'll get back to you tomorrow on that. I'll send you a whole list.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, it looks like the next agenda item is going to be the FY21 budget update. I know that we sent out a couple of schedules to the members. I know the schools management report, the town management report, showing where we are as far as expenses. I know I just sent out today, and I understand if you hadn't had a chance to look at it only a couple of hours ago, on the revenue recap of where we are as of end of December. I didn't know if anyone had any questions, had a chance to review, or from the FinCom side, or Mike, from the town side, if there's been any surprises or issues, concerns that have been identified so far in the FY21 budget.
I see a message here, February 8th is the first meeting, by the way.
Okay.
Just on the revenue side, if you look at the budget, obviously what we budgeted for revenue, there's most of the line items are where they should be, because you figure that 6 months we should be at 50%. Other excise is at 68.5%. Penalties and interest at 60.93. Other charges for services is at 88.76. Fees are at 65.11. Departmental revenue cemeteries, unfortunately, is at 97.82. Other departmental revenue is at 61.4%. Licenses and permits is at 54.5. And investment income's at 66.85. Now, some of the ones that are lower, motor vehicle excise, we're only at 14% because most of that comes in February. And the other one is rentals. Let me see. That's just because our rentals is only at 3.53% because obviously we haven't received rentals that will be coming in at a later date. But we're right at where we were last year for the same time with rental income. And then with the licenses and permits, we're at 54.5%. We're 800,000 less than we were last year at this time, but that we're waiting. Condyne is supposed to be pulling permits for 2 new buildings. So hopefully that when that comes in, that brings that up. Obviously, we want to be higher. In investment income is lower than it was last year because the interest rates are lower, but we planned on that. So obviously, we want to try and get these higher than the 50% that we should be at in order to develop, result in some free cash. But, we'll keep an eye on them and hopefully the motor vehicle excise comes in during the month of February significantly. On the budgets themselves, on the town side, we seem to be doing good with the budgets. The only ones that obviously that we talked about tonight, elections, we don't know what's going to happen with that. We'll wait and see what the state does on that. We've been fortunate, obviously, with our snow removal. We're at 42,921 so far on that. Data processing, we've had more hours for the part-time person because of COVID and the amount of time that person has to spend on remote learning, remote meetings, but that has been paid through the CARES fund. But most of the budgets seem to be doing good. I'll be meeting with everyone on Wednesday, so I'll go over everything with all the department heads then and see if they have any concerns.
Excellent.
I know, I don't know if you saw it, that for next year's budget, the governor said he is going to be increasing local aid. I mean, he's saying that doesn't mean that's going to happen. And he did say over 3%. He didn't say if it was going to be spread out 3% for everybody. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. But it's a good sign to at least see maybe they're not going to be cutting local aid.
Oh, good. So you feel confident then in our projections at this time?
At this time, yeah.
Okay. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for Mike or any questions regarding the revenues, the actual management reports, town side, school side at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one quick, Mike. How's the new regional communications center working out? Any glitches there?
It's been working out great. There haven't been any glitches at all. And both police and fire are satisfied with the way things have. It was a smooth transition over. No hiccups at all.
Good. Thank you.
And Mike Units, on the budget side, I think we budgeted only a partial year anyway, so we should see for FY22, will that department go away as far as our town budget except for the assessment?
It will just be the assessment.
Okay.
We'll keep that budget just for that expense.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Now I'm not sure, is that Rick or Zach?
Yeah, it's Zach.
Zach.
Mike, investment income, what's that, interest on the money in the bank? Or you're buying mutual funds with the tax dollars?
It's interest on the money in the bank. Catherine does whatever she can as far as investing the money, within the guidelines that the state allows. So she's done a great job over the last few years with that.
Does anyone else on the committee have any questions for Mike? All right, hearing none. Mike, thank you.
Welcome.
think, just for this last section, I know I'm gonna put, Zach and Bonnie on the spot right now. I know you guys are representing the FinCom on a couple of the various committees, capital and then permanent building. Zach, if you could give us an update on where you are on the capital, and then Bonnie, if you could give an update on the permanent building committee for the members.
Mr. Chairman, we just started last week. I think at this point, we haven't voted on anything. We heard tonight a presentation from the schools and the water department on, phase 5, I think, of the water project, and the schools are looking, shrunk down their request to about 85,000 for what they're looking for capital. But again, none of it's been voted on yet. It's still just presentations. And last week, I believe we heard Mike from Police and Fire on some cruisers that they needed and some equipment. But that's just getting started now. Nothing has been, like I said, voted on.
Yeah, the previous meeting was police, fire, data processing, and highway.
Correct.
Thanks, Zach. And Bonnie?
Sure. I actually don't have an update for their most recent meeting because I had to work on the night of January 19th, which was the last meeting. So all of you that were at the joint meeting with the school department and the select board know that the select board decided, or maybe it was decided at their later meeting, but they have decided to put all 3 projects together as one question on the ballot. And I think that's really the only update that there has been.
Okay, thanks, Bonnie.
Over that, sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Zach?
and just to add to that, I was on the selectmen's meeting, then I think this, we talked about the cost of the elections. They've also voted to have one election with everything on it, the Charter Commission, the projects, capital projects, and the spring election. So I think it's just one vote unless the Charter Commission gets approved, and then there'll be another vote to fill those charter seats in June, I believe. Isn't that correct, Mike?
Right.
So that will cut down some of the costs.
Yep. No, thank you, Zach. All right, I think we heard from Mike, but potentially the next meeting we'll verify it is going to be on February the 8th. We'll start the budget process, and the goal is to meet Monday nights. We might have to put in a little bit longer time, but I think it'll be worthwhile. And I know one of the pieces of information that I sent was information from the town charter that Mike had sent regarding the budget process for the town and the schools. So put information in there and then create a timeline to back up when we have to get all of our recommendations in, so we can get those. Just, again, I think it's going to be an interesting year with COVID and what it's going to do with the revenue for 22, but that's going to be something that'll be laid out. And if our legislature continues on the same track, we might not hear until quite some time into the budget year. So we'll see how that works. But unless anyone has any other questions for Mike, any of the information we heard tonight or anything overall on the budgets, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So we'll get through a quick meeting tonight potentially, but we'll be in for future meetings a little bit longer.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Was that Amy on the second?
Sure.
My screen jumped on. So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any other discussion, conversation? Hearing none. Take the vote. Peter?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Michael Fiore?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
And Kevin?
Yes.
And I am also yes. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it, and be safe.
Good night.